pandemic. We have argued quite strongly that student nurses and midwives have not had the same conditions as their directly employed colleagues, particularly when it comes to sick pay, when we're dealing with being paid to carry out clinical placements, where they're working long 12-hour days on wards and filling in staffing deficits. Students aren't meant to be filling in staffing deficits, but that's what's happened during the course of the pandemic.
And was that students on remuneration as well as on internships?
Again, we would certainly argue that the allowances that are covering student nurses and midwives certainly wouldn't go far enough in covering accommodation or travel costs. I know that the Minister has had an independent report that the nursing unions, including SIPTU, have looked for, sitting on his desk since August, and we're arguing with the Minister why that has been sitting there now since August unpublished. We've certainly made our submissions to that independent process, and we've argued quite strongly that student nurses and midwives and other student healthcare workers should be paid for the work where they're carrying out clinical placements, shouldn't be at financial loss because of travel or because they have to take accommodation because their placements are away from their work, from where they live, or away from their college. And that needs to take place. That report needs to be published, and the government needs to address this quite urgently.
So how would you see to address it? Would you see for them to be paid as healthcare?
Well, we would certainly see, the first thing is that the independent report needs to be published, and we would certainly argue that when you're carrying out clinical placements, it is work, and that you should be paid for carrying out work. Right. And I think that would be a welcome step. Also, that student nurses and midwives shouldn't be financially at a loss due to travel expenses, or the fact that they have to take up accommodation because they're away from their home or from their college.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
And sorry, what was your name?
John McCamley from SIPTU.
Organiser for
for nurses and midwives.
Thank you very much, John.
No problem.
John, could you talk to a second?
Yeah,
just
no problem.
On People Before Profit Facebook page, as to what are the key issues that you're highlighting today? What's the main demands?
Well, the nursing unions, including SIPTU, are arguing for the publication of an independent report, which has been sitting on the Minister's desk from August. This independent report is supposed to deal with issues pertaining to student nurses and midwives. And certainly from SIPTU's point of view, we're arguing that student nurses and midwives should have access to sick pay, should receive monies for working, and shouldn't be out of pocket due to travel expenses or accommodation. We believe that the government has failed student nurses and midwives and other students in healthcare environment through this pandemic. Put them in situations where they're filling in gaps for deficits of staffing without properly addressing the staffing deficits within the health service. So certainly I think the first step that needs to take place is that independent report needs to be published, and the Minister needs to seriously address the issues for student nurses, midwives and other student healthcare workers across the board. And what do you make of have you got any reaction to the announcement today for fourth year students that they're going to give them an extra 12.5%? Well, we obviously welcome any announcement that will increase the numeration of student nurses, midwives, particularly in fourth year. But obviously there is students carrying out work in years 1 to 3, clinical placements, which they don't get paid for, and that needs to be addressed as well. There's also other student healthcare workers who aren't paid at all and don't receive allowances, and the Minister needs to address that as well. So there needs to be an across the board approach to dealing with all students who work in the healthcare environment.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks.
Was I just going to say, how are you? I'm doing good. Yeah. still trying it.
The welfare officer.
28 years of age.
How are you? Show your. Let's see your.
Even Joseph.
So we thank you both. Thanks, William. Yeah, no worries.
So excited to be a nurse, but sometimes I question my decision because I can't even live in my own country and be respected in my career.
Exactly. You know, it's just disappointing, really. You think that your government's going to support you. I don't know any other country that treats students like this. You know, it's at the point where we've to protest outside the government. Like, we were working during the pandemic for $1.50 an hour. They were supposed to pay us on June 1st, and we didn't even get our checks till last month. Till we to beg for them, you know? Would that go down in there when they're getting their wages? Do you think they'd wait on it? No, they took €14,000 extra during the pandemic, and they didn't even pay students. Disgrace. And it's Stephen Donnelly who's to blame.
He's the target of your blame.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, yeah.
How do you guys feel about him as a health minister in there?
Awful.
Yeah, I wouldn't be his biggest fan. I don't want to I don't want to badmouth him or anything, but I wouldn't be his biggest fan. I would love for him to come out for just 1 week of work with us and see what we do and see how he would feel then. Or have him working there for 35 hours a week for free and see how he feels.
He said that we aren't getting paid because it's for education. Okay, if that's the case, Stephen, then make it possible for us to learn on placement.
Yeah,
you know,
we can't learn. Like what you said, he's saying that it's because we're being educated, but we're not even being educated because there's no nurses there to educate us because it's so short-staffed. So we're essentially just working. We're not even there to learn. We're essentially just there to fill the empty slots of staff.
What kind of an impact is COVID having in terms of people out sick and things like that?
Huge impact. Like, we just finished 8 weeks placement, and my very first day there, it was myself and one nurse. That was it for a whole unit of people, and I was just thrown in the deep end, and I didn't even know who they were, where everything was. I had to just find it myself. Like, it makes you feel so unappreciated and so stressed. Like, you're going into a new place and you're scared already. You're scared as it is. You're nervous, you know, it's a new place. You want to do good, and then you get there and there's no one to show you around, no one to support you, nothing, you know?
It sounds pretty chaotic, pretty difficult.
Yeah, like, often there's just one nurse per ward. Like, they're busy doing their job. Like, they can't be expected to train in student nurses as well, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's no fault of the nurses.
They do their best for us, and they know that it's not how we deserve to be treated, but it was the same for them. You know, it's generational. It's not just.
It's a universal
it's
experience to all students, though. It's not like it's just the odd case. It's every single student has been pleading online for months, years. It's not a new thing that student nurses are protesting. It's been going on years, and when are they going to take action? It's like we're begging on the streets of Dublin to be paid fairly, not even a luxury wage, just to make ends meet.
Just an allowance. Like, we're told we're not allowed to work and be on placement at the same time, especially now with COVID because of cross-contamination. So what do they expect? Us to just work 35 hours a week, pay for travel expenses, pay accommodation rates. With what? With what? Like, what? You want me to go out singing on the streets or something?
Yeah.
Because that's all that we can do. We're not allowed to work. So an allowance, a bursary, a pay, anything will be better than what we're doing right now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck with it.
Thank you. They were waiting this whole
Wow.
time.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. We're upstairs.
No. No, the previous one.
He's our class rep. Oh, hi,
Darren Wrestling.
Intellectual disability.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still doing it. We want to interview someone like with a young.
Rory, with People for Profit, just on our Facebook page, would you be able to explain a bit why you're here?
Yeah, no panic.
that okay?
Take this off. Yeah,
whatever
sure.
you
Just
feel.
for the So we're out in front of the Dáil today in support of our student midwives and nurses. They're waiting to see the release of a report on basically the review of the payment structures for students in first to third year and fourth year interns. There's been some speculation about slight increases. What we need to see is a systemic overhaul of the bursary scheme for first to third year students, a significant increase in the amount of compensation being provided to fourth year nursing interns. They're not being valued at the rate they currently should be. This report is behind schedule. It doesn't seem to be a matter of priority for government, so what we really need to see now is significant action to overhaul the payment system. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yes.
Okay, what mission tour there?
Okay, so what do you
You want to say? Here to support?
I do.
You're on live.
Okay. Here to support the student nurses and midwives, who obviously were on the front line and still are on the front line in terms of COVID. We're working for free in the course of the pandemic. It's an issue we've raised again and again and again. And I mean, the government today is making some moves under pressure, but we have to keep the pressure up to ensure that people are paid properly for the work that they are doing.